I call this September the 12th work session of the Oconee County Board of Education to order. First thing we need to do is we need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Burgess,
Second.
Mr. Ransom, all in favor? Passes 5-0. We need superintendent's report. Dr. Branch.
All right, thank you, board members. Thank you for your attendance this morning as we welcome some guests. It's been a busy but rewarding last few days in our school system. On Friday, we were able to name all of our school level teachers of the year and celebrate those at each of our 11 schools. And we look forward to celebrating those teachers, and you see them on a graphic behind me. We look forward to celebrating those teachers along with their families on September the 29th, where we'll name our district teacher of the year. And then, of course, that ceremony and celebrations in partnership with our good friends at the Oconee County High School Alumni Association that does great work for our school system and lots of wonderful partnerships. Also wanted to share that Oconee County High School and North Oconee High School continue to have great success both on and off the field. Our fall sports are off to a great start, with several of our teams being ranked in the top 10 in the state, and have had some great experiences. I know many of those games you've had a chance to come to and different experiences and see, and it's always great to see our community come out and support our students as they pursue their passions outside the classroom. Our school spirit, in my opinion, is at an all-time high. And we've seen that represented here recently with both of our student sections at both North and OC being named the best football student sections in the area by the Athens Banner Herald. So, as you know, we like winning in Oconee County, and we like winning in the student section as well. So, I hear Mr. Carter maybe even got some tricks up his sleeve coming up. So, today, as you know, was also a special day for Oconee County schools. And Dove Creek Elementary School, you were there as we greeted Governor Kemp and many dignitaries from around our state as they came to visit Dove Creek Elementary and to announce some educational priorities for the future of our great state. And we always welcome elected officials when they seek out an opportunity to see the good work that's taking place. And I want to thank Grace and the teachers and staff at Dove Creek and the staff from our central office that worked to support that visit, and I think it was a wonderful visit, and we got to show off all the great things that are taking place in our schools and more importantly our students. So thank you, Grace, for that. Finally, we're excited to share presentations and conversations tonight, both honoring our past and assisting in planning for our future. To get that started, I'm going to ask Anissa to come forward, Director of Communications, and provide a historical perspective on our School Street campus, which is what we call our current central office location.
Thank you very much. As Dr. Branch said, I will share a historical overview of this campus. The history of the School Street campus dates back well over a century. Early records show that in 1895 there were 2,398 students in Oconee County who attended a total of 50 different schools, none of which were part of a county board of education. However, in 1902, as you can see here, the first high school, Oconee High School, was built in Oconee County as a result of newly passed legislation which created a public school system in every county. Reports indicate that at different points, a number of other grades were housed in that building as well. The school system began experiencing growth immediately, especially as a bus system made attendance more feasible. In 1918, the enrollment of the high school doubled, and so there was an addition that year, as well as another addition in the 1920s due to continued growth. The high school was the largest in the county and was designed by Charles E. Choate, who was a U.S. architect who worked in Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. The high school mostly burned down in 1954 after a lightning strike. The only part of the original structure that remained after the fire is a portion of the rear wall. In that year of 1954, there were 32 graduates. For comparison, there were 599 graduates last year, or this May, in Oconee County Schools. The high school was consolidated with Bogart High School in 1956 and was moved to the current location of Oconee County Middle School. Today's Oconee County High School was built in 1992. The original Oconee High School is where the Oconee Cultural Arts Foundation, or OCAF, is currently located. Part of the two additions are still present in the current OCAF structure as well. In 2001, Oconee County Schools sold the OCAF Gallery building for $1 to the Oconee Cultural Arts Foundation. You can see here Rocket Hall that was originally built in 1933 as a gymnasium for students. This property is now used by OCAF as well. This building, the current superintendent's building, sits where Watkinsville Academy was once located. This building was erected in 1932 and housed grades 1 through 4. Students and teachers referred to it as the Little Building. 3rd grade was in the superintendent's current office, and 4th grade was in this room, the current boardroom. And here you can see recent renovations. The current teaching and learning building was built circa 1952. Prior to the fire, students took typing classes in the building and attended 12th grade in the now special education and communication offices on the right end of the building. There was a mixed grade classroom elsewhere in the building. After the fire, the 12th grade room became a 7th grade room. Many community members have reported going to 4th, 5th, and 6th grades in the building as well. Classes offered for business courses were held fittingly in the current Business Services, Student Services building, which was built around 1960. Students learned typing on manual typewriters, shorthand, bookkeeping, and other business-related skills. Prior to the current building, there was a wooden building on that exact same site that was moved to make way for the brick building that currently sits there today. At one point, there was a cafeteria in the building as well. And of note is that the building today houses school nutrition. You can see here the technology portables that are right outside of the Business Services building. And behind that are the OCAF School Street Studios, which were built in 1937. That was a vocational school that housed agricultural and home economics programs. It was also home to a canning plant, with the cannery located in a rectangular room in the rear of the building. An addition was added to the building circa 1950 to be used as a kiln. In 1956, after the high school was relocated, School Street Studios was used as part of the elementary school until 1968. It even continued to house kindergarten until 1987. Circa 1940s, many former students have said that they had their tonsils taken out in the hallway of that building. The northwest corner was added in the late 1970s or early 1980s for a bus garage. In 1994, OCAF acquired the School Street Studios property. The board office has been on the 34 School Street campus since circa 1980, and for the 40 years prior, the Board of Education operated in the basement of the courthouse. 36 employees currently have offices in the 3 School Street properties, plus the 2 portables on site. Divisions on the campus are the Superintendent's Office, Associate Superintendent, Teaching and Learning, Technology, Student Services, School Nutrition, Communications, Business Services, Operations, and Human Resources. This represents a total of 35 offices. In addition to the individuals on site, there are 85 central office employees who are located in other locations throughout the school system, including psychologists, social workers, bus drivers, maintenance staff, and technology staff. In addition, this room, the boardroom, seats 50 individuals. Since its earliest days, Oconee County Schools has been a rapidly growing system. Data from this century shows that in 2000, OCS's enrollment was 5,255. Today, more than 8,500 students are enrolled in 11, soon to be 12 schools. That represents a 62% increase in the 21st century. The design of this proposed instructional support center for our growing school system features a timeless and traditional design featuring red brick and columns. Decorative smokestacks and chimneys were included in the design to honor the original Oconee High School. When it was built in 1902, the school was heated with pot-bellied, coal-burning stoves. The cupola on the new design represents the cupola that was on the original Oconee High School building. When the building was reconstructed after the 1954 fire, the cupola was not added back. However, the proposed ISC design includes elements from the original 1902 design to honor our history, while new elements of the proposed ISC point us towards the future. In this design, there would be 66 offices for the following divisions: Superintendent's Office, Associate Superintendent, Teaching and Learning, Student Services, School Nutrition, Communications, Business Services, Operations, and Human Resources. Student Services and Special Education Central Office staff that are currently housed off-site would be moved to the proposed ISC. The boardroom in this design would seat 118 individuals, providing much more room for community engagement and recognitions. As far as planned for the current school street offices, the opening of the ISC would allow technology staff to be housed in the 3 buildings on this campus: the Superintendent's Office, Teaching and Learning, and Business Services. Currently, technology staff members are split between these offices and the technology offices at Oconee County Middle School. I must pause here and offer special thanks, as there were so many community members who took part in providing historical information for this presentation. From their pictures to their stories and the anecdotes, just all of the support they provide us and the love for this community was just another example of what a wonderful community we have. So this wouldn't have been possible without them. And in conclusion, since our earliest days, Oconee County Schools has been a rapidly growing system and a highly desirable destination for families. As we honor our history and look to the future, we are proud to be Oconee strong, now for 120 years.
That'll conclude Superintendent's report unless there are questions.
Just one comment.
Yes, sir.
That was a really good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
The history, the collection of all of that history in the one place now is fascinating. It's kind of interesting to hear how far that goes back, and obviously how long all of these buildings on this campus have been used for multiple purposes for decades and decades and decades through all kinds of issues. And I especially appreciate your comments about how the design of the new building recognizes and sort of honors the traditions and the history of our past. So, well,
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Next on our agenda is presentations and discussions. First, we have Teaching and Learning Report. Dr. Susan Stansel, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. The September 2022 Teaching and Learning Report contains 3 items of information and 2 action items for the September 19th Board of Education meeting. The first item of information is an update on the Special Education Parent Survey. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, requires that each state develop a state performance plan that evaluates the state's efforts to implement the requirements and purposes of IDEA and describe how the state will improve its implementation and results for children with disabilities. IDEA requires states to report annually to the public on each local LEA in the state on the indicators in the state performance plan. One of the performance indicators is tied to parent involvement. Parents are asked 10 questions and asked to rank each response. Questions cover effective communication with teachers, equal partnership in decision-making, and information for student success in transitions. The report gives valuable feedback on how parents perceive their ability to actively participate in their child's education. OCS uses the information to enhance services, build relationships, and improve student outcomes. In Oconee County, the parent survey resulted in a score of 54.4 out of a possible 60 points and had 518 responses. This score is in the top 25% of systems. I want to commend Suzanne Corgold, Director of Special Education, along with our teachers and leaders for their outstanding work. The second item of information is our OCS Preschool Screenings. Developmental screenings are held monthly by appointment as part of our child find procedures for special education, as mandated by IDEA. Children aged 3 to 5 are eligible to be screened. The screenings include a vision, hearing, and speech screener. The results of the screenings are used to determine if a child needs further intervention, evaluation, and/or services. The Oconee County Special Education Department believes early identification and early interventions leads to a positive early experience for children at risk of developmental delays. Screening information and upcoming dates are posted on our website, in the Oconee Enterprise, and shared with local daycares. The third item of information is Board Regulation BCBI-R1, Public Participation in Board Meetings. Board Regulation BCBI-R1, Public Participation in Board Meetings, has been revised to reflect the requirements within Senate Bill 588. Senate Bill 588 provides explicit instructions as it relates to how the public participates in board meetings. Our current regulation has been revised with required additions as stated in this law. The first action item for the September 19th Board of Education meeting is the Northeast Georgia RESA Special Education Shared Services Contract. The Board of Education is asked to annually approve a fixed price contract with Northeast Georgia RESA for special ed shared services. The fixed price contract for FY23 outlines that OCS will remit a payment of $373,729.75 to Northeast Georgia RESA for services as required in the IEPs of the students served here. The superintendent's recommendation is for the Board of Education to approve the fixed price contract with Northeast Georgia RESA for a special education shared services at the September 19th, 2022 board meeting. The second action item for the September 19th Board of Education meeting is Board Policy BCBI, Public Participation in Board Meetings. Board Policy BCBI, Public Participation in Board Meetings, has also been revised to reflect the requirements within Senate Bill 588. Again, Senate Bill 588 provides explicit instructions as it relates to how public should participate in board meetings. Our current policy has been revised with required additions as stated in the law. The superintendent's recommendation is for the Board of Education to approve placing Board Policy BCBI, Public Participation in Board Meetings, on the table for public comment at the September 19th, 2022 board meeting. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions or comments? Thank you. Next, we have a report from technology. Mr. Ryan White, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and Dr. Branch. I just want to say I'm really excited about the potential for technology to all be at one place. So we're gung ho for that. So the Oconee County Schools Division of Technology Services September 12, 2022 Board of Education report contains 3 items of information and 1 action item for the September 19th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Our first item of information is our Internet outage protocol. As you may know, there was an intense car wreck near Butler's Crossing last month, and it took out a utility pole that happened to have our internet fiber running along said internet pole. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to discuss what happens when the internet does go out in one of our schools. So we have a monitoring program that alerts the technology department of any outages. And then once we confirm the outage, we notify the school administrators and the district leaders. We then forward all the school's phones to the administrator's cell phones so we can continue communication with the public. We then investigate the outage, we make any changes we need to, and we engage our telecom providers as well. As we restore internet services, we verify the phones, the Wi-Fi, and the services are still functional. So that's how we're able to kind of stay ahead of it instead of them, needing the help in that moment, our system actually tells us that Oconee Elementary down or Oconee Primary is down. The second item of information that we have is about our increased internet speed. At the August State Board of Education meeting, the State Board approved a proposal to increase the current bandwidth from 200 megabytes a second to 400 megabytes per second per school. The State Board previously upgraded internet speeds during the early part of the pandemic from 100 megabytes to 200 megabytes per school. This latest upgrade will increase our total state-provided bandwidth to 4.4 gigabytes per second for the overall district. Lastly, all school districts have also been provided with a bandwidth dashboard to monitor internet traffic as well. Our third item of information is a security certificate. Technology Services recently upgraded the security encryption for PowerSchool. This provides Oconee County schools with increased resiliency to cyber attacks by state actors and lowered risk to ransomware and data breaches. And lastly, our action item for next week's regular session are the projectors and projector components. Oconee County Schools posted a request for proposal for 90 projectors and 65 projector components on June 30th, 2022 and closed on August 1st, 2022. The superintendent's recommendation is for the Board of Education to approve purchasing projectors and projector components at the September 19th, 2022 Board of Education regular session for $74,948.70 from Audio Visual Innovations. These will be paid for using ESSER and EVOS funds. And these are for Dove Creek Middle, and they're also for replacement projectors as well as part of our replacement cycle. That concludes my report, unless there's any questions. Yes, sir.
Brian, are there other little locations where a freak accident like what happened could take out other components or other access to our internet, or was that sort of a one-off that happened just at the wrong place at the right time?
So that's a good question. So I'm starting my 4th year here. That was the first time that has happened here in just over 4 years, and they were able to restore services within about 5 or 6 hours. So I would think that would be a freak accident. In this county, most of the fiber runs down Hog Mountain Road, so that kind of limits us on where we can, pull our fiber.
Okay. You do realize when you and all your staff are consolidated into this building, it'll be much easier for Dr. Branch to find you from now
on. We'll see. I may take Matt Stevens up on those cheesy tots. Beforehand.
It's on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have operations. Mr. Brock Toole, welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everybody. The Oconee County Schools Operation Division September Board of Education report contains 4 items of information and 2 action items for the September 19th Board of Education meeting. The first item of information is our energy report, and Steve Bridenbaugh and his team always need to get the credit for continuing to do a good job there, but it does show us a trend increase in usage over June. Our second item of information is our lead custodian meeting from August. It was hosted by the team at Oconee County High School. Our custodial teams have been commended for the rigorous work ensuring that all our schools are clean for health. For our third item of information, I'm going to turn it over to Fred Rickson and let him explain to y'all about some good construction updates.
So my monthly weather report, it's rained a lot. But we are keeping up a good pace there at Dove Creek Middle School site, even though the weekly rain has continued to challenge us. We, as you can see from the photograph, the lower level is taking shape. There's an actual inside to the building. Block work and electrical work is going, and plumbing is ongoing, and steel is going up daily at this point. So they're really doing well. We are targeting a summer of 23 opening. The concrete seems to be a little easier to get lately, thank goodness. Which is allowing us to make good progress with pouring the slabs on the upper level. If you've been past recently, you probably noticed some concrete poured out front. That's for the kitchen and cafeteria area. Phase 2 modifications at Oconee Primary, Oconee Elementary, and Oconee High School. Brock will be presenting this project as an action item later this evening. But some of the details are we're targeting a summer of '23 opening. The scope of this project includes re-roofing the flat areas of the primary school, elementary schools, and the flat area of the horseshoe at Oconee High School. We're also doing as-needed repairs to the metal roofs at all three facilities. It includes a new facade at Oconee Primary and Oconee Elementary, a new freezer cooler at Oconee Primary, new air conditioning units in the 600 building, which is the third grade hall of Oconee Elementary, a new monument sign, and finally a new monument sign for Oconee Elementary School. I'd also like to take a minute to introduce you to two projects so that you're aware of the potential scopes and timelines for these projects. The first is the Malcolm Bridge Elementary School addition. We've begun preliminary design work for the addition at Malcolm Bridge Elementary School. This is a 12 classroom addition. This will increase our capacity to approximately 750 students. We're working towards an early spring of '23 start of construction with a June of '24 completion date. Our hope is to issue an RFP in late January or early February. And then finally, the new Instructional Support Center. The design is progressing well for the new Instructional Support Center. We will be submitting to the City of Watkinsville this month to begin the permitting process. We're working towards an early spring of '23 start of construction with a June of '24 completion. So our hope would be to issue an RFP in late January or early February for that as well. The site plan is designed to accommodate 2 future buildings, as you can see on your screen there. It has 116 parking spaces. It's a 2-story building of 36,060 square feet. It includes a 7,300 square feet of unfinished expansion space into the attic. And of course, the architectural elements that Anissa mentioned, the white columns, the cupola, the smokestacks that face with respect to our past. And that concludes my report unless there's any questions.
Rick, can you go back to the primary school and elementary school? What are the completion dates for both of those projects again?
July of next year, July of '24.
July 24?
No, sorry. You caught me. July of '23.
Okay.
July
So,
of 23.
so right now, the anticipation will be both of them will be completed next summer.
Yes, sir.
With all the things that you described being done in both of those.
Right. The biggest part of the scope is the roofing.
Yeah.
And what we've learned of late is roofing materials and HVAC equipment are terribly difficult to get in a long lead time. So that's why we're bringing this project to you all tonight, so that the contractor will have plenty of time to order the materials, get them on hand, so that when school releases in May, we can hit the ground running and get this project underway.
What is it that's being done at the high school?
It's only roofing at high school.
Okay. So that's just
It's the flat roof area for the horseshoe. We will be doing some roofing repairs for the metal roofing, that's primarily flat roofing.
And even with all the rain and all the issues you were dealing with, you still have any concerns about Dove Creek Middle being finished next summer at the time to start school?
At this time, they're not on schedule. They're about 2 weeks behind schedule, but there's still a lot of time left to make that up. And again, with concrete getting a little easier to get a hold of, I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at.
Drier weather ahead.
Unfortunately, we have a dry week this week, and we could stand have a short drought. Any other
Anyone
questions?
else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Just wanted to provide a little transportation update. As y'all know, Dwayne Pearson, our transportation director, has been out. He is doing a whole lot better. And came by and saw us today. So just to give you a little bit about what's going on in transportation, if anybody has heard, we need drivers. So if you got a brother, a sister, a cousin, a family friend, or anybody that wants to drive, please send them our way. As you can see right here, we put something out to all of our certified staff saying, hey, if you'd like to drive, make a little extra money, come see us. We'll definitely let you drive in the mornings and the evenings if it permits and you can, or field trips, activities such as sports and things after. And believe it or not, we have gotten a lot of good feedback from our schools. And it's amazing in this community when you go out there and say, hey, we've got this issue. People rise to the occasion. So we're setting up a plan now in the upcoming months to bring folks in. They do their mandatory training, their testing, and then hopefully they'll be driving and helping us get out of this bus driver deficit. So that's a real good thing, a very innovative way to look forward and try to tackle the problem and came with a solution. And I thought that was great. To let you know kind of where we're at with that, we currently have 72 routes. We have 66 drivers. Our deficit that I spoke of is 5 regular ed drivers and 1 sped driver currently. We just hired another driver this past week, so that also helped from Walton County. At the end of the day, transportation is good, though. I don't want to paint a very dim picture and let everybody go, hey, the route's not going to make it. No, we're going to make it every day. We're doing what we need to and taking care of it. Any questions about transportation?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
How many routes do you anticipate adding for the new middle school at Dove Creek?
Around 8, maybe a few more.
Okay. Anyone else?
I got some action items in here I gotta get to, I believe, unless there's any more questions on the information item. Our first action item is our phase 2 modification that Fred was just explaining the scope of. As you can see here, Mr. Superintendent's recommendations for the Board of Education approved Bowen and Watson for a contract proposal of $3,974,000 and an estimated total project cost of $4,633,970. Of course, that's for your furniture, your technology, and other things that we include. Any questions on that? Our second action item is our grounds maintenance. It's the superintendent's recommendation is for the Board of Education to approve houseman services for a cost proposal of $360,996. Any questions? Yes, sir.
That's an annual contract?
Yes, sir.
What's the period from July to July or?
We go from, yes, sir, from end of June to July.
Okay, so fiscal basis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Haven't we been using Houseman? Doesn't Houseman do it now? It has
Yes,
for a
sir.
while.
It has for a long time.
Well, how does this price for this next year compare to what we had to pay this
Well,
past year?
Put in perspective, 6 years ago it was $176,483, and as you can see, this was $360,996. So what you could do each year after the 4th year is you could re-up as long as the price was the same. Well, with inflation, the price of gas, and the additional stuff that we put in the contract, that's the additional monies that it went to. So it's that much more than the original 6 years ago.
Oh, it was a 6-year contract?
Yes, sir. Well, it was 4, and then we did an additional one
Okay.
to go, and then they couldn't just from a cost basis. They were losing money,
Yeah.
so that's when we put the proposal out, and we had the 6.
So how much would the price have been last fiscal year with all of in their 5th year of their contractual agreement with us? What was the price last
So
year?
they had to keep it the same for the contract.
Oh.
Yes, sir. That was,
So it's been 175 or so for
yes,
5
sir. That
years?
was money.
That was even adding Dove Creek Elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
We got, well, no, let me rephrase that, Ms. Kim. We did add to it when we added
Okay.
elementary, so.
But it was a fixed rate contract for basically 5 years that they've had to deal with
Yes, sir.
until they can rebid.
Yes, sir.
So is this annual then? I mean, now is it year to year?
Year to year. Yes. Well, now this one right here will be a 5-year
Okay.
contract as well. And they'll have the same thing. They can
So this is
re-up.
the new basis going
New
forward.
basis based on inflation, gas prices, the additional scope that we've added to them. And now they'll take this for the next 5 years. As long as they stay current, we can do year to year again. or resubmit if there's inflation or things of that nature. Yes, sir.
I say there's 3 other bidders that were below them, but I assume
Yes,
they
sir.
weren't providing the same services.
That's
They
correct.
could not.
A whole lot more actual teams being on site, more actual cuttings, things of that nature, fire ant. There's a few other things that are added in there, but that is why.
Well, I would say that's consistent with what they charge me for my home.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Dr. Brooks Whitmire.
Thank you, Ms. Arda. Good evening, everyone. Resources has 4 items of information this evening. First one is our Teacher of the Year selection process. As already mentioned previously, the excitement that we all enjoy this time of year when we name our names and selected their Teachers of the Year. You see the names there again. Just wanted to give you a little more information about the process. In 2 weeks' time, as Dr. Branch mentioned, we will celebrate our Teacher of the Year banquet on the 29th, and between now and then, these local school winners will complete the application process. And in a couple of weeks, they will be observed and interviewed by the Teacher of the Year selection committee, which, as you recall, is comprised of some of last year's Teachers of the Year, including our district level Teacher of the Year. And then ultimately, they will select our district winner for this year, and we'll celebrate on the 29th. Next item of information is just a brief update for you on student enrollment. Board members, you'll recall that, of course, every year in October we have our FTE count, which is the official count of all of our students, and then later on in the spring of the year we project and predict the student numbers that we believe are coming. And then once school starts on 4 successive Wednesdays, we do a physical count of students to see where we ended up. And what I can tell you is that, as has already been mentioned, when you include all of our students, including pre-K, we are north of 8,500 students now. K through 12, just to be specific, it's 8,462 is our final count, and that represents about just a shade under 1% growth from last FTE. Third item of information this evening, historically, board members, as you know, the last couple of board meetings, I've brought you some information, some updates on our hiring for the year, and tonight, I want to give you some information specifically about the teachers that we've hired for this school year. All in all, board members, and I've shared this with you before, our total number of new teachers hired for this year is 78. You see that we hired 40 elementary school teachers, 10 middle, and 28 high for a total of 78. Now, the vast majority of those are replacement hires. Some of them are new positions, but that is a big number. And you can see on the next slide, the last few years, to give you an idea, last year we hired 45 to start the school year. So this year that was a 73% increase in the number of teachers that we hired. Again, can't be more pleased with the quality. Quantity is obviously a big deal, but quality is as well. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that our experience level, it's always interesting to see this because board members, as you know, because of your support, there are no preconditions placed on our hiring except to go get the very best that we can. And it's always interesting to see how that breaks out experience-wise. You see this year, we have a higher number of less experienced teachers, 0 to 5 years, but then when you look 6 and beyond, that comes out to 45 in that range there. So great quality. If you go to the next slide for me, Zoe. This is always interesting as well. Not everybody came from another school district. We hire from all over, but for those who came from another school district, this is where they came from. Any questions about any of that? And board members, I never want to miss the opportunity. I alluded to it a minute ago. Our thanks to you for your support. We're hiring all the time. We're always looking for good people, and for all positions. And as you know, we accept applications 24/7 for any position, whether there's a vacancy or not. But when we get into the meat of the hiring season, which for us begins in March, you turn us loose to do that because of your support. We're able to come back now and start another great school year with some terrific folks. And really, when you look at those numbers, that's a couple of schools worth of teachers. That's a lot of folks that have decided to partner with us and pour into the sons and daughters that are entrusted to us every day. So thank you again for your support. Last item of information that I have for you this evening is redistricting for Dove Creek Middle School. And board members, as you will recall, the redistricting process really goes back almost 10 years now. When we had strategic planning way back in 2013, we engaged, as you recall, in a very extensive strategic planning process that was extraordinarily well attended by our community. We asked our community members for their input on a variety of topics, including what they believe to be the ideal capacity for each of our levels of school, elementary, middle, and high. And as you know, we have very clear support for our elementary schools to have a capacity of 750 students, the traditional K-5 elementary schools. Our middle schools to be at 1,000, and our high schools to be at 1,500. 5 years ago, I don't know if it seems impossible to you, it does to me, but it was 5 years ago right now when I was standing here talking to you about Dove Creek Elementary School. I don't know if you recall this, board members, but I did. I don't know how, I forgot this, but we had a hurricane. We had to delay it. So redistricting is never the easiest thing, but at least we're not hurricane this time around. Some might be praying for one to come. Not to happen, not to be this time. We addressed elementary schools at that time, and now, of course, we're addressing the middle school piece. And as you've seen along, the excitement of Dove Creek Middle School, which is coming on. And you'll recall, board members, back in February, and it's before you, I came to you with the proposed timetable, and you approved that on Valentine's Day. And since that time, as you know, along with Dr. Branch, of course, many of our leaders have joined me in being heavily engaged in creating the draft attendance lines that we're going to read to you tonight and publish this evening. Let's talk about the timetable just for a minute. Tonight, these attendance lines are, of course, coming to you. They will also be published. We will make them public tonight, and everyone will be able to go and see the proposed maps. They'll be able to go and look at their street and see, is my street affected, and that sort of thing. And over the next couple of months, we will ask for and receive community input. Anybody who wants to provide that input is welcome to. We'll have a way for them to do that electronically. And then on the 11th of October, just as we did several years ago with Dove Creek Elementary, we will host a community forum where the public can come and interact with you all over this proposal. And then on the 7th of November, Lord willing, we'll bring the final draft of proposed attendance lines to you, whether that's the same or if there's any alteration, and then your vote on this is scheduled for November the 14th. And if you approve those lines at that time, they will be published that evening. So that's where we are on the timetable. This is not an action item tonight. You're not being asked to vote on anything. We just want to bring the attendance zones to you. Before I go any further, I mentioned the leaders that have taken part in this, and I want to publicly thank, in no particular order, Dwayne Peterson, Jennifer Whitaker, Ray Stanishevsky, Dallas LaDuff, Keith Carter, Mike Eddy, Matt Stevens, Kevin Yancey, Jennifer Adams, Ryan White, and Tony McCullers for all their hard work in what has truly been a team effort with what we bring to you this evening. As I mentioned, proposed zones and an opportunity to provide feedback will begin tonight. So if you don't mind going to our first, our middle school, our current middle school map.
Current middle school?
Please.
Yes, sir.
So the priority, obviously, when you build a new middle school is to populate that middle school. And what you see in front of you is our current secondary map. That includes the high school attendance lines as well as the middle school attendance lines. We're going to go back and look at high school in a few minutes. I'd like to show you now the proposed middle school attendance zones. And as you can see, Dove Creek Middle School is basically, it splits what is the current Malcolm Bridge Middle School zone, and we create the new Dove Creek Middle School zone. And just for reference, that line is essentially Clotfelter Road, homes that are on either side attached to Clotfelter Road, down across Hog Mountain, picking up the Snows Mill and going down to the county line. That is the new Dove Creek Middle School proposed attendance line. Malcolm Ridge Middle School is obviously right in the middle, and then Oconee County Middle School, those attendance lines in this proposal are unchanged. Another priority when we're looking at redistricting is how can we take advantage of the opportunity to rebalance, where appropriate, elementary zone lines so as to best position us for growth in the future and push out as far as we can the need to have redistricting again. And so Zoe, if you don't mind showing the current elementary school map to begin with of the various zones. You see up in the, I guess that's the northwest corner where Dove Creek Elementary currently is, and of course Malcolm Ridge. And now, Zoe, if you can click on the proposed elementary school lines. Drawing your attention, board members, to a couple of things. You will see that the zone lines for Column Ferry Elementary School are unchanged in this proposal. The zone lines for Rocky Branch Elementary School are unchanged. There are changes in the remaining elementary and primary school zones. You'll notice up again in that northwest corner, heretofore, since Dove Creek Elementary School in that northwest corner, those students were zoned for Dove Creek Elementary. In this proposal, streets and roads in that area are zoned for Malcolm Ridge Elementary School. There's also an area that we affectionately refer to and have for years as the Oconee Split. And you recall, board members, that the Oconee Split is really in the Rocky Branch and Malcolm Ridge zone. There were a relatively small number of students that heretofore had been zoned to go to Oconee County Primary and Oconee County Elementary, but then shift to Malcolm Ridge Middle and North Oconee High School. In this proposal, those students are now zoned, those streets, roads are now zoned for Malcolm Ridge Elementary School and Rocky Branch Elementary School, such that, if you will, they start red and stay red through the high school area. We also have, you'll notice that the High Shoals Elementary zone in this proposal is shifted to the east, roughly to Union Church Road. Was cut off on Whippoorwill Road, and we moved that more toward Union Church Road, going up and down Union Church Road on either side. And so that obviously impacts High Shoals Elementary School, but it also impacts, as does the Oconee Split, the primary and elementary school. So those students heretofore have been zoned for primary and elementary, will now be zoned for High Shoals. Any questions about those pieces of the proposal before we move on and look at high schools?
Obviously, over the last 18 months, and still going with Malcolm Ridge Elementary, we're doing a lot to try to expand the capacity of the elementary schools to bring them all up to a capacity that we think we're going to need for a while. As far as you can tell, this rebalancing tries to rebalance all of those elementary schools against the capacity they've got, and hopefully starts them at a level that they'll be able to maintain for a while.
That's exactly right, Mr. Burgess. What I would tell you is that in this proposal, conservatively estimating, we would estimate 7 to 8 years before we have an issue, potentially with growth or with any sort of capacity issues in those schools. You mentioned Malcolm Ridge Elementary School, and as Fred mentioned earlier, the addition is forthcoming. And what this plan does, again, based on anticipated growth that we can see and track diligently, Dove Creek Elementary School will take a little step back in terms of its population. Malcolm Ridge Elementary School will grow a little bit in this plan, such that we anticipate that growth and then also anticipate the addition that's coming to Malcolm Ridge Elementary. Any other questions on elementary school? So if you can show back to that current, what we call our secondary map, because we had a combined high school and middle school zone line map. That is, even though it's not, that's not red as we would call red, but that's to the left is really red. That's the only color we can get in that particular program. So that's your red-blue line between the current secondary and high school, secondary, middle, and high school. And now, Zoe, if you'd show the proposed high school map. And board members, what you will see is that this proposal includes no proposal for any change on the red-blue line for high schools. If someone is currently zoned to go to North Oconee High School, they will remain zoned for North Oconee High School, and the same for Oconee County High School under this proposal at the high school level. A few highlights from what we're putting before you this evening. First and foremost, again, Dove Creek Middle School is populated in this plan with room for growth we anticipate. And board members, one of the things I didn't mention earlier when we talked about student enrollment is that our high schools, our middle schools, as you know, the strategic planning process produced for us a clear understanding that our community wants them to be at 1,000. Our student count for our two middle schools, our last student count of the year, just a few weeks ago, our middle schools are at 1999. So we're exactly at that place where we're now going to be able to build a new middle school, create some more room, and then also do the things that we mentioned at the elementary school level. High school will be something that obviously will be addressed going forward in strategic planning in the time ahead. But in this plan, Dove Creek Middle School is populated. Our elementary and middle schools are stable. And again, conservatively, we would estimate, even anticipating healthy growth, we would estimate a good 7 or 8 years there. I would tell you, board members, that 92% of our students are not affected by this proposal. So even though a lot of moving parts, when you shake it all out, we're talking about 8% of our student homes being affected by this plan. High school attendance lines are unchanged. There are no split feeder middle schools. And the last thing I would mention to you is that the district will offer school choice for all students K through 12 this year, as we always do. So if I'm in a situation where I'm one of those 8% that are affected, and the parents of those students want to engage in the the school choice process, they'll have the opportunity to do that. With that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
I want to thank you and your staff. I know a lot of work went into this, and the fact that the red-blue zone stays exactly the same and only 8% of our students are affected, that's just incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know y'all did a great job. I think the results are just amazing, considering it's a difficult task, and it's really a great job y'all did there. And like you said, even with the minor, at 92%, I guess you would call it a success rate that nobody's affected. That's pretty incredible. And even though you have a little bit of effect, I assume the majority, 8%, is the middle school.
That's right.
And hopefully they'll like to go to that brand new shiny middle school and move forward. But even with that said, it's a nice caveat that they'll have that school choice if they want to stick around through those changes. So I think it's a win-win for everybody involved. So y'all did a great job. Thank you.
Is it safe to assume that the lines we're drawing here in trying to meet the capacities of the schools that we're now going to have are all based on historical and our best informed estimates of growth rates in parts of the county?
It is, that's correct. One thing I failed to mention too, Mr. Burgess, that is also in play here, there are no existing neighborhoods that are split in any of these proposals. There is a neighborhood development that is forthcoming, the Parkside development, if you will recall, it's 800 home development that's on the docket, if you will. And that plan, if you dig a little deeper into the high school line, you'll see that the line goes right down the road there and splits that.
But it's not built. It's not built at this point.
Correct, sir. Nothing's there at this point.
so that leads to my second question. And so based on the best projections we've got, the best estimates we've got, this plan rebalances our school system against the capacity of our buildings. But that could all be dramatically affected if any of those assumptions dramatically change, or if a large development like you're talking about that has 7 or 8 other homes in it, if it were to take off and do something that's not expected over the next 4 or 5 years.
That would be the hurricane if we did.
Yeah. So I guess my point is, this is based on a set of assumptions. That's the best we can assess based on everything we know. But if any of those growth assumptions change dramatically over the next several years, it can unbalance what we tried to balance here.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's fair.
And I think that's probably an intuitive thought that anybody would have, but I felt like I ought to at least say it so that you have it out there, so that if 4 years from now things are totally out of whack, it's not because of any of the work you guys did today to try to rebalance. It's because growth conditions in the county change in a different way than would have been expected.
That's right. And we stating the obvious and not being tried about it. We can't pick up the school and move it to another location.
That's right.
We got to deal with what we got.
And the flip side of that is, I think we've got such a good hedge of the vet of these proposed subdivisions that are out there. We know the number of houses that are going to be in there. Even though there's not a single house built in there yet, we've taken into account for that. So probably the 2 biggest possible hits of change of population that occur, you've accounted for that in this plan, which is just, again, great job. Thank you. Great job. I mean, if either one of these big subdivisions take off, hey, we're good to go with this plan. So, really good plan.
So High Shoals is a split feeder school, and what is there another elementary that then will be?
Rocky Branch and Malcolm Ridge will both be
Okay.
elementary schools.
That's on the Devil Creek and
Because of Devil Creek and
Yeah.
Malcolm Ridge, that's right.
yeah, and go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's important to reiterate, like you said, how far in the past this work has been happening to get us to this great outcome. Because I think we're all very pleasantly surprised that it worked out so well, but it would have been a much tougher thing for our community had we not engaged the community in the strategic planning process, like you said, and then if our leaders hadn't been forward thinking with the growth and adding on to our schools as our community wanted, because now because of those factors, we have very little effect on our community. Plus, so we're not having to grandfather anybody in because we can offer school choice, which is really unbelievable. So yeah, y'all have done a phenomenal job, and thank you for the time you put into it. And I know listening, I know you've had some community input even since the timeline got out there, and really taking that into consideration, but also, as Tim pointed out, try to make sure it's the best decision for years from now too, and they'll have little impact going forward. Like we want to have to do this again in 2 years because we can try to appease everybody right now.
Any other questions?
The first item of information is a school safety update. Board members will recall in August, I went over our school safety plans with you. As part of those plans, we conduct at least 2 lockdown drills at each of our schools. Happy to report that the first round of those drills have concluded. And I would like to highlight one of those drills that took place at Collin Ferry, because we were able to have the local school council at Collin Ferry participate with us in that drill. The sheriff's office also participates in all of those drills, and Superintendent Dr. Branch also joined us to have some conversations with the local school council about school safety and conduct that drill. Wanted to point that out because we had a very positive reaction to that, and we are going to continue to look for ways to engage our community in the conversation around school safety as a whole. While we're on the topic, I'd also like to just thank our Sheriff's Office once again, not only for their work that they do when we teach our students and teachers how to respond in those situations, but also they have made a concerted effort to have more of a presence on our campuses, and we've already seen that on social media with our principals and teachers getting to engage with them.
on campus when they make visits. So we're very pleased with that partnership and thankful for their support of our schools. The second item of information is a school nutrition update. You have before you a comparison between this August and August of 1920. The reason for that comparison is that 1920 was the last school year that we were on our traditional free and reduced lunch model. So when comparing August of 22 to August of 19, you'll see that we had just under 1% increase in participation for breakfast, and just over 0%, almost even, increase in our lunch participation. The first action item for the September 19th Board of Education meeting is a Oconee County High School band field trip. They would like to travel to Orlando, Florida from March 10th through the 13th of 23. The second action item is a Oconee County Middle School band field trip. They would like to travel to Charlotte, North Carolina, March 31st through April 1st. And the third action item is a Oconee County Middle School chorus field trip. They would like to travel to Orlando, Florida from May 22nd through 26th, 2023. This concludes the student services report unless there are any questions. All right, I'm now going to ask Anissa to come and deliver the communication report.
Thank you. And before I get started on my regular items, Ms. So, if you would please pull up oconeeschools.org. I wanted to share that if you noticed that I stepped out, it was to share our redistricting information with the community. And so all of our staff members and then parents and then local media have received this information. And Ms. So, if you'll scroll down, the first item under district news, if you will click it. So this has our press release, and then if you'll please click that link that's oconeeschools.org/redistricting. On this page is all of our information, the plan overview, including the highlights of the plan, the information about the upcoming listening session, which will be Tuesday, October 11th at 6 at North Oconee, a link to a feedback form, and then we also have maps there, the current maps, and then the proposed maps that Dr. Whitmire shared. And then if you'll scroll down, there's a current street index and then also a proposed searchable street index. And so this is something that parents can use, and you see the instructions there. If you live on Main Street, you would just type in the word Main, and then it would show you what your zoned elementary, middle, and high schools are. And so we want to make this really easy for our parents to obtain the information that they need, and so we have everything here at oconeeschools.org/redistrict.
They're the search features for the new redistricting.
Yes, it is. And now on to my regular items. The first item, we have two items of information. The first being quick facts. Our quick facts on the school system as well as on all 11 schools are now on our website at oconeeschools.org/quickfacts. Hard copy versions are available and poster versions have been also provided to all schools. And you can see here on the next two pages, this is what the district one looks like. This is a front and back one with facts and figures about our school system, and then the back of the district quick facts are our district accolades and achievements, and all 11 of our schools are represented on our quick facts. And then just I've shown you one example of a school one. They are all formatted the same, and these are all linked on every school's website too. So on each of their quick facts, you'll see unique programs, academic achievement, and then points of pride. We feature a picture of their teacher of the year, and we share information about their webpage, social media, and then at the top right, you'll see there's a banner that showcases one of the main achievements of the school. And so they're all formatted consistently. And then the last item of information is our monthly highlights video, and this is from August, and how we kicked off the 2022 to 23 school year. So as you can see, it was a great start to the school year, and whether I was out taking these pictures or our school's communication ambassadors who were wonderful sent these to me, we have so many great things happening at all 11 of our schools. And that concludes my report unless there are any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to thank everybody in the room for getting us off to such a great start, thanks to all of your work and your faculty and staff. We do have a need to go into executive session, and we need a motion to do so.
I'd like to make a motion that the board will adjourn to executive session to discuss or deliberate upon personnel matters as described on the affidavit to be attached to the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Parrish.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bagley, all in favor? Passes 5-0.